Welcome to Subramani. I'm going to talk about OPM, right? No, not OPIUM, but OPM, other people's money. Should you leverage at all, and why should you leverage? Let me put it this way: I'm almost anti-leverage, definitely anti-leverage for investing. However, there are times when you can leverage and you should leverage, right? So of course it depends on each person's comfort level, saying why should I leverage, I've got so much money and I don't need to do anything. So just look at it this way: most of the big wealth in the world, right, whether it is Mukesh Ambani or whether it is even Rakesh Jhunjhunwala, any of the big investors, many have had leverage to a great extent in their portfolios. How Rakesh used leverage, we will talk about it later, but I am talking about not just leveraging for investing, that we will talk at the end, but I am just talking about leveraging for certain reasons why it looks attractive to leverage, right? For example, you have some shares which have done extremely well, they have doubled in 10 months, and you know that you can sell and pay capital gains tax. That's fantastic. But you suddenly are saying, why should I pay capital gains tax at the highest rate? Let me wait for 2 more months and make it long-term capital gain. Fine. Then you can buy put options, because if the share price falls down, the whole purpose is lost. So you buy put options on that share and you use what I would call LAS, right, loan against shares. Each company calls it differently. I mean, basically it is securities backed line of credit. That is even better, because then you go and take a loan against the shares and you pay interest only when you use it, right? So you use something like that, use the money, and after 2 months you already have long-term capital gains. Just go and sell off the share and pay off the loan. Or if you think that the share is going to appreciate further, wait for some more time, because you have only a securities backed line of credit. So if you have money from some other sources, pay off. This is a very good reason to leverage, and maybe you should leverage. Or you say, I can postpone my tax, so let me pay capital gains, long-term capital gains instead of short-term capital gain, and therefore you are leveraging, right? Do you need to buy a second home? I mean, let's say you decided to buy a second home somewhere in the hills or somewhere in the ocean, or somewhere at the seashore. I mean, can you go sell off your shares and buy the property? Yes, of course you can. But there's one more thing you can do. I think a couple of banks have this facility where you can go, open a demat account, keep your shares, take a line of credit against that, keep your fixed deposit also, right? So let us say you have 1 or 2 crores lying in debt instruments. So you go into the bank and keep it in a bank FD and borrow against that. You pay almost nothing as interest, obviously, because your money is already lying there. So you get a securities bank line of credit to buy a property. You buy the property, let the dividends take care of the EMI, right? I'm assuming you have big enough portfolio. Then what is happening is you're using OPM, other people's money, and then when interest rates come down, let's say interest rates now are 9% for a home loan. So you continue to use the credit. Yes, of course you're going to pay the interest only when you use it, but suddenly you find interest rates come down to 4.5%, and then home loan is available at 6%. That's a good time to go and fix it and say, okay, now let me borrow money and repay in installments. So this is another good reason for you to borrow, right? When you're expecting a tax bill, suppose you are expecting a tax bill. I mean, I have to pay my advance tax, so I paid my advance tax, but suddenly some mistake and I find that I have to pay a big amount of tax and I don't have that much of cash. Of course I can sell my shares and pay off the tax, but then by selling I incur more capital gains tax, right? So if I don't want to do that, I go and take a, right, like I said, securities back line of credit, pay off the tax, and then when the market improves, sell. I mean, I'm assuming here that you don't want to sell because the market is low. If the market is high and you don't mind selling, that's a different thing. Let's say the market is low, then you have a huge portfolio, go pledge your portfolio and borrow against this. In all these borrowing situations which I have said, these are all temporary borrowings. Even a home loan is a temporary thing, because the minute interest rates come down, you may go for a fixed and one say, okay, I don't want a line of credit, I'll borrow against the property itself and pay the EMI. That's also perfectly all right. But there is another reason for you to borrow, that is for buying more of shares. Should you borrow, should you not borrow? So I am anti-borrower, and Rakesh used to borrow. Rakesh used to use leverage, and I mean, I am not comparing myself in terms of size or anything. I am nowhere near Rakesh, but Rakesh said something very interesting long ago, when maybe when we were doing CA. So that's really long ago, decades history. And he said, if you have a portfolio and you have other income, right? Suppose you have a portfolio worth 10 or 20 crores, whatever, and therefore you have a, let's say, 30 lakh dividend income, and you are employed, you're working, you're earning about 50, 60 lakhs, maybe 80 lakhs, which is more than sufficient for you to meet your day-to-day expenses. You actually have a surplus for you to invest. But your dividend income is completely unnecessary for you, in the sense that you're not touching that income for your day-to-day needs. You don't need that income. Yes, of course, any income is welcome, but you don't need that income. He would say the amount of money that you borrow, you should be able to pay interest out of dividends. Okay, so let me just explain. You have a 20 crore portfolio on which you are getting, say, 30 lakhs as dividend, and let us say interest rates prevailing are 10%. Okay, it's high, but let's say it is 10%, which means if I went and borrowed or if this person went and borrowed 3 crores, he would pay 30 lakhs as interest. That 30 lakhs was covered by the dividend income, right? So you didn't need the income, you're living off your other current income. So borrowing 3 crores and paying 30 lakhs, he considered it as responsible leverage. He did not use words like responsible leverage, but that is how he would leverage. And the reason why I didn't leverage is because I was very scared of leverage, because I was not a disciplined trader. If I saw a trade had gone wrong, I would just pray and hope and wait, and then say, no, let me wait for some more time. I did not, at that point in time, I did not have the discipline to be a trader, in the sense that if I bought a share, I would not have stop loss and things like that. Now I am very clear that I would have a stop loss, especially if it's a trading kind of a position, which itself I do very little portion of my portfolio would be in trading. So therefore the need for leverage is not there. So I don't leverage. It's up to you to what to do. But these are reasons, right? Suppose you want to help a friend's son who is doing a startup. There are two ways to help. One is to say, okay, here is cash which I have got, or to take a securities backed line of credit and say, okay, here is a line of credit, I will co-sign with you, you can use this money whenever you want, up to a limit of, say, 50 lakhs, right? That is another way of helping, because you have given him a line of credit which you use, which again you are using your own assets. You know in your heart that if that person defaults for whatever reason, you have to make good, you'll have to sell your assets and pay off. But at least there is pressure on that boy or girl to say, okay, this uncle has given me money and this money has to be repaid. The other way of helping, of course, is to take a securities backed line of credit, buy an office and give it to that person and say, okay, the monthly rent for this place is about 1 lakh, so I will not charge you rent for next 3 years. So which means my contribution is 36 lakhs, which is not coming upfront, but it means you're going to save rent, right? So again, a good enough reason to borrow. But please understand, all this is assuming that the money is repaid. If it is not repaid, then the whole purpose of borrowing is lost. So should you borrow and buy shares? I am not too keen to do that. I would not, personally I wouldn't. But I know some of the biggest, best investors do take leverage position when they think the market is fine. Like, back the truck. Here is a great idea you have got. back the truck, have the guts to put 20% of your portfolio into it, borrow, leverage, buy, and then keep on reducing the size, right? Because as a percentage you want to now keep reducing the size of your portfolio, size of that share in your portfolio. So sizing. So when you want to do those things, leverage is a great tool. Using both sides of your balance sheet is a fantastic idea if you are disciplined. Remember, the greatest wealth in the world has been created by leverage, and the greatest bankruptcies have been created by leverage. So Mukesh Ambani versus Anil Ambani, right? That kind of a thing happens even within the family. So do responsible leveraging, understand why you're doing, and see how quickly you can cut position when things go wrong. If you know all these things, leverage, or if you're like me, don't leverage. Thank you.